Ben & Jerry's was created by Ben Cohen and Jerry Greenfield in 1978 and is one of the world's only fully goated brands.
We sure do make some of the best ice cream you ever tasted.
Not only is their ice cream incredible, they have been extremely supportive of progressive causes like marriage equality, trans rights, indigenous rights, Palestinian rights, reparations, dismantling the prison industrial complex, and fuck it, dismantling white supremacy while we're at it. They literally embed these messages right into their products. How is this possible? I mean, I thought corporations and morality didn't mix. Did Ben & Jerry's hack capitalism with love? Well, that might depend on what happens next, because right now, Ben & Jerry's corporate parent, Magnum, is trying to silence them. So I'm just gonna sum up what happened real quick. So Ben & Jerry's were sold to Unilever in 2000, and then their agreement basically set up a firewall between Unilever and the Ben & Jerry's board so they could take whatever political position they wanted. But that changed starting in 2021 when Ben & Jerry's announced that it would end sales in the occupied West Bank. Unilever fought them on this and then fought even harder in 2024 as Ben & Jerry's tried to speak out about the genocide unfolding in Gaza. They even blocked a pro-Palestinian flavor Ben & Jerry's wanted to create. So after some legal clashes, Unilever spun off its ice cream business into the Magnum Ice Cream Company, but the underlying conflict didn't change. So Ben & Jerry's asked Magnum, please let us become an independently owned company so they could be free to say whatever they wanted. And Magnum was like, no! So, Jerry Greenfield resigned in protest, and Ben Cohen has taken the fight public with the Free Ben & Jerry's campaign and petition at freebenandjerrys.com. So that's the table stakes. And because of that, I sat down with Ben to talk about this whole drama. But my favorite part of this interview is the second half, where we talk about a passion we both share: dunking on the military-industrial complex. We also talked about what he thinks about renaming the Department of Defense to the Department of War.
Finally, something that Trump has said that's honest.
His arrest for protesting Gaza at a Senate hearing.
My country is giving weapons to Israel as a gift to kill all these people in Gaza.
And I asked him, as one of the OG Bernard brothers, if he thinks Bernie could have gone all the way in 2016.
Absolutely. I have no doubt in my mind.
And to be clear, you do not get free ice cream when you go to freebenandjerrys.com. I went, and I'm very mad that I didn't get any. But Ben did bring free ice cream to this interview and lots of Oreos, which will make sense very soon.
Hurry right away, no delay, stop the day. Make your daddy glad to have had such a lad.
Harvey Weinstein is complaining about Rikers. That's right. The supervillain of the Me Too movement is upset because he got punched in the face by a fellow inmate. And Harvey is correct. Hitting is wrong, even in prison. It is awful to be touched without consent. Anyways, I read about this story on Ground News, which is today's sponsor, and HMDK's favorite independent news platform. Ground News shows a breakdown of publications reporting on a story in which way they lean politically, whether it's right, left, or center. Now, it's not about eliminating bias. We all have biases, but Ground News helps you be a more conscientious consumer of the pageant of pain unfolding around us. Now, you may think, yeah, duh. CNN is slightly left, Fox is right. Why do I need this? Well, not everything is about America, folks. Ground News sources articles from all over the world. For example, there are currently 97 articles talking about Weinstein and Rikers, and a lot of the publications are international. Now, I know the Globo in Brazil leans right, and Le Monde in France leans left, and I'm keeping that in mind when I read their coverage. So go to groundnews.com/Hasan to subscribe and get 40% off the unlimited access Vantage plan, which breaks down to just $5 a month with my discount. Stay aware and go to groundnews.com/Hasan today. MAGA has this famous tagline that's been very popular over the past few years. You go woke, you go broke. Anytime a Disney movie comes out that flops, they go, you go woke, you go broke. Are you broke?
Not near as I can tell.
When we talk about corporate values, what does that mean?
Well, I mean, in terms of values, the values I think about happen to coincide a lot with what Jesus talked about in the Sermon on the Mount. Care for people that are oppressed, welcome the stranger, feed the hungry, feed the poor, love thy neighbor. I mean, yeah, I'm into that. That seems good. I mean, and I think what's happened is that business has said, well, that shit, maybe that's maybe that's when you're in church. But, we can't have those values in business. If we were going to have those values in business, we wouldn't be able to stay in business. We'd go broke. and it's just not freaking true. It's a lie. I mean, and Ben & Jerry's proved it. I mean, Ben & Jerry's has had these humanistic, caring values. I mean, the same values that, that we want in anybody.
You're talking about basic virtue.
That's all I'm talking about, right? And the reality is that business is the most powerful force in our society. And if business wanted to, it could have those values and it would be a really beautiful society.
What do you say to people that push back on this philosophical notion that the very idea of capitalism, of companies that have to deliver returns quarter to quarter for investors, just fundamentally bumps up against the virtues of integrity, honesty, empathy, care for the weak, the impoverished, the poor? What do you say to those people that say these are just oil and water? This is a paradox that you cannot resolve.
We've heard that story. Yeah. It's a lie. I mean, I understand that, maybe it's easier to run a business where all you care about is the financial bottom line, how much money is left over at the end of the month or the year. But in terms of meaning and in terms of joy, in terms of doing that business, if you factor in social concerns into your day-to-day business activities, it's a much more meaningful, joyful experience. It's very motivating to employees and it's very motivating to customers. I mean, Ben & Jerry's, taking these stands for justice ends up creating this simpatico relationship with our customers that's the strongest bond that a company could ever make with their customers. I mean, usually people are buying products from corporations in spite of the values of the corporation. I mean, they're kind of buying it because they need it, but they're kind of holding their nose because, they don't really want to be supporting that corporation that cares only about one thing. Mm-hmm. And when they have a chance to buy a product from a corporation whose values they agree with, man, they are overjoyed and they just want to keep on buying that stuff.
There was this lightning rod 2020 moment in the wake of George Floyd's murder. It was this very powerful moment. And in the years since that, there's been this huge pushback. The rollback of DEI, again, this go woke, go broke kind of talking point agenda. In the 6 years since that moment, have you now become more cynical to a lot of the language that some of these companies have used? Because it certainly has made me more cynical.
Well, I tell you, I was, of course, the death of the murder of George Floyd was a horrible and saddening thing.
Yeah.
But when all those corporations started making these statements soon after that, that we're going to hire more non-white people, banks were saying we're going to make sure we loan to more non-white people, we're going to make sure that our suppliers are not just white people, and they came up with actual numbers, objective numbers that you could hit. We're committing so much money to this. We're going to have so much of a percentage of our workforce diverse. I was really kind of overjoyed. I was feeling like, wow, corporations have finally gotten a conscience. They've finally have decided to use their power to improve the way life is conducted here, and to especially for people that have been discriminated against and oppressed, and then Trump comes into power and he says DEI bad, and all these guys just jettison all those programs.
Has that type of political polarization made having a strong social stance harder? Because now it's everything's a political issue. We got a new M&M. Well, who'd the M&M vote for? It's like, we're recasting Cinderella. All right, well, which party is Cinderella in? You know, do you find it to be difficult to navigate? You have certainly ran a successful business through every version of partisanship, blue or red. Is this particular moment more polarized than ever? Or has it always been that way?
I think that the country is probably more polarized than ever. You know, a big reason being that, you know, every other president has sought to bring the country together, and the current president is seeking to divide it. So, you know, it's a rather influential office, and I think he's being quite successful in dividing the country. But in terms of Ben & Jerry's being able to be Ben & Jerry's and Ben & Jerry's values, I mean, there's no doubt that the Magnum Corporation, I think, is kind of falling in line with what Trump wants.
So back in 2000, Ben & Jerry's was bought by Unilever. And you did something unprecedented. You created a legal framework that essentially it guaranteed you and your independent board of directors to take whatever political stance you wanted. Is that true?
Yes.
How'd you do that?
Well, so what happened was that Ben & Jerry's was a publicly held corporation at the time.
Yeah.
Unilever wanted to buy it. Jerry and I did not want it sold, but we didn't own controlling shares. And so against our wishes and despite, you know, our efforts to keep it independent, the company Unilever wanted to buy it. And there were other companies that also wanted to buy it. And Jerry and I were incredibly resistant. So Unilever says, well, why are you resistant? And we said, well, because we think that if the company is purchased by, you know, another company that doesn't have the same social values, that our social mission is going to get destroyed. And they said, well, let's just write it into the acquisition agreement that the social mission will live on. And, you know, we're trying to figure out, well, how do you write that in? Because the social mission needs to evolve as the country evolves, as the situation evolves. And the way that we ended up doing it was to form this independent board of directors for Ben & Jerry's that has legal authority in perpetuity over the social mission, over product specifications, over the quality of our ice cream, the use of the trademark, how the company is marketed.
So it sounds like, hey, as long as the ice cream stays good, the money keeps coming in, you can hold whatever position you want. And Ben, I got to give it to you, man. You went hard in the paint for decades, standing 10 toes down on a lot of issues. Over the years, Ben & Jerry's supported Black Lives Matter, refugee rights, marriage equality, criminal justice reform, voting rights. But then you crossed the line. You said the P word.
The Palestine word?
You said it. And your corporate overlords were not too happy about that.
Well, what happened?
What happened?
You know, the board was feeling for, you know, years that having our ice cream sold in the occupied Palestinian territories in the West Bank went against the values of the company. You know, essentially supporting the mistreatment of people who lived in the occupied territories, and that the occupation itself was illegal. And so, you know, there was a bunch of studies and work done on it. There were visits to the area by our people from the company, and eventually there was a decision that was where the board of Ben & Jerry's and the management of Ben & Jerry's and Unilever all agreed that Ben & Jerry's would pull its products out of the West Bank. And what happened, what I'm told happened, is that when we announced that, the head of Israel called the head of Unilever and said, if you don't make this right, if you don't get those products back here, we're going to kick out all the Unilever businesses. And they had, like 20 different brands, 20 different types of products they were selling there. And so Unilever unilaterally went against the board of directors and sold the rights to Ben & Jerry's to an Israeli, and so that the ice cream would be available in the West Bank, although only in Hebrew. And, that was a major, usurpation of the power of the board. And there was, a bunch of negotiations that proceeded, and they broke down, and eventually the board had no choice but to sue Unilever, which is, not your everyday thing that a subsidiary of a corporation sues the corporation. And so that, after that point, Unilever started muzzling Ben & Jerry's on a whole range of issues. And, when we tried to call for a ceasefire when they ended up with this war in Gaza, they wouldn't allow us to do that. When we wanted to support the students that were protesting, they wouldn't allow that. When we wanted to support people's right to free speech and freedom of the press, there was that woman who wrote an op-ed in a college newspaper, and she got kicked out of college for that, or deported or something. We wanted to support her, and we were prevented from doing that, and that's illegal. The terms of the agreement.
Is it true that they stopped you from celebrating Black History Month?
Well, they, yes. It is true. There was a post that we wanted to put up supporting Black History Month, and they would not allow that. And this is the same company that I was so proud of the statement that they made after the death of George Floyd, which is, we must dismantle white supremacy. I mean, I felt like that was that's the company, so our company made that statement,
but Ben,
I had nothing to do with it. And I was overjoyed because it was the company itself that took that position. And then, there was this huge change, and Unilever prevented us from putting up this post in support of Black History Month. It was pretty strange.
But Elmo celebrates Black History Month.
Exactly. It's kind of ridiculous. I think it was Trumpism. I mean, I think at the time Trump was down on Black History Month. He wouldn't, he's trying to get all the information about how the U.S. was involved in slavery.
Yeah.
Trying to get that information out of the museums, out of the college out of the high school textbooks,
right,
the public school textbooks. So that's what it was part of.
Last year, you were arrested after interrupting an RFK Jr. Senate hearing to protest Israel's Gaza blockade. I'm going to show you the footage. Take me through what's going on and why you did it and how you feel. Let's take a look.
Ben, why are you getting arrested?
Move down the hallway. If you stop, you will be arrested.
Kills poor kids in Gaza by buying bombs and pays for it by kicking kids off Medicaid in the U.S.
Keep going down. Keep going down the hallway.
They need to let food into Gaza. They need to let food to starving kids.
Now that you're not being dragged down the hallway of a government building in zip ties, what were you trying to tell the American people? What's going on here?
Well, what was going on for me was that, I'm sitting home, reading these newspaper articles or, whatever you read online, however you get your news these days, about how my country is giving weapons to Israel as a gift that are being used to kill all these people in Gaza. And I'm keep on reading about that, and it's driving me a little crazy. And then, it's driving me very crazy. And then I see this other article in the newspaper about how there's another outbreak of lead poisoning in, I don't remember where it was. Maybe it was Milwaukee. And, lead poisoning is an issue that drives me up a wall because it's very preventable. We know what causes it, and we know how to fix it. And, lead poisoning cannot be cured. It's a lifelong thing. A kid gets lead poisoning and their brain is affected for the rest of their lives. And instead of using our money to get rid of lead, we end up buying these bombs to kill more people. And so, everybody has their breaking point. And I saw these things and I said, I want to chain myself to the White House fence. And, the people I work with said, well, you can't do that anymore. The White House fence has been militarized, and you can't even get to the White House fence because they have a fence before it, and they have guys with big machine guns walking in between. And they said, we think
you wanted to do a hunger protest. You were going to, chain yourself to the fence, and wow.
And they said, well, but we think we can maybe get you into a hearing and you can make some kind of statement. And I said, you think that's really going to be effective? And they said, yeah. And I had my doubts, and it ended up being kind of one of the more effective things I've ever done.
So all this activism and the positions you took in regards to Gaza, it obviously did not fly too well with Unilever, but eventually Unilever spun off and sold you to another corporate daddy called Magnum.
Right.
How did that happen?
Well, what they did was they spun off their entire ice cream division. They have an ice cream division that comprises about 100 brands of ice cream around the world. Here in the U.S., it's Popsicle, Good Humor, Klondike, Breyers, Talenti, Yasso, and Ben & Jerry's. And Unilever decided that, for one reason or another, they decided to get rid of their whole ice cream operation. I think originally they were trying to sell it to another conglomerate or some private equity group, and they weren't able to do that. So they decided to spin it off into its own separate, publicly held corporation.
So as soon as it gets sold to Magnum, this other conglomerate, Jerry resigns. You guys, you're Jordan and Pippen, baby. You're Magic and Kareem.
Well, not quite.
I would say, hey,
if it was an eating contest, we would.
Ben, you two were goated. Don't ever hold yourself small, King. Okay,
all right.
You two were goated. So he steps down. What was that like? Why did Jerry step away? What was it specifically about Magnum and the pressure in regards to this issue that made it too much for him?
Well, I want to be clear that Jerry and I have not split up. We're still the best of friends, and we both came to understand that there was no way that the social mission of Ben & Jerry's was going to survive under the ownership of the Magnum Corporation. And, Jerry decided to resign in protest, and I decided to stay on and fight.
You kept the fight going, and you've taken the fight both public and online with the website, freebenandjerrys.com.
You've been there.
Yeah.
Well, come again. Keep on coming.
Well, look, Ben, I have a couple complaints.
All right.
First of all, I went to the website and I thought I was going to get free Ben & Jerry's, and I didn't. It's a different type of free Ben & Jerry's.
It is a different type.
So look, I think the cause is important. I think the clickbait is wrong. because a lot of people are going to go to the website and they're going to think they're going to get free Ben and Jerry's. So we got to have another tab or sublink to get free Ben and Jerry's. But what is freebenandjerrys.com? What's the goal of the website?
Well, so when Unilever announced, and this was like 2 years ago, that they wanted to spin off their whole ice cream division, Jerry and I went to them and said, hey, there's been all these conflicts between Unilever and the board of Ben and Jerry's, and why don't you just separate out Ben and Jerry's so that it can be sold to socially conscious investors that actually support the mission, and and have Ben and Jerry's be able to thrive and have the other businesses be able to thrive. And Unilever said, no, we're not willing to do that. And so Jerry and I were very public about calling for socially conscious investors to make an offer for Ben and Jerry's, and some of them attempted to do that, but Unilever refused to engage with them, and then the company got split off into the Magnum Corporation.
So is the goal for freebenandjerrys.com, is the goal is if there's enough public momentum and movement behind this, is this an awareness play? Are you guys basically asking, almost like the way musicians during those old record label contracts, are you asking, hey, let me go independent? I don't want to be a part of the old record label. Will you let me spin off and do our own thing?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing.
And then how does the public come into play here?
Well,
if your dad doesn't own a private equity company.
The reality is that the fate of Ben and Jerry's is in the public's hands. If enough people get involved and they make their voice heard, they stand up, they participate in the actions that are on the website, they sign the letters, they sign the petitions, they bomb Magnum's social media with statements about freeing Ben and Jerry's, Magnum is going to end up having to give in and sell it. And, and what's really happening from a, financial investor point of view is that this brand that they've got, Ben & Jerry's, this very powerful brand, which has been built on this values-led business model, it's the very thing that Magnum is in the process of destroying. They're destroying that values-led business model. They're therefore destroying the brand. They're ripping the heart out of Ben & Jerry's, and it'll become less valuable.
I want to turn to a passion that you and I share, dunking on the military-industrial complex. I'm going to share a video that you recently posted on your IG.
Here's the Pentagon budget, 50 Oreos, $1 trillion. Yo, Ben, the up in arms guy. I'm here to talk about the federal discretionary budget. Here's how much the federal government spends on education, renewable energy, childcare, helping homeless people, world hunger. Why don't we just take some Oreos off this Pentagon stack? That's enough to fully fund schools that serve 8 million kids. Take another one off. That's enough to convert 1 million homes to solar energy. Take 2 off. That provides universal pre-K education. 1 Oreo. End homelessness. 2 Oreos takes care of all the people that don't have enough to eat. Take a look at this. China spends that much on their military. Russia, that much. Iran, North Korea. Even after we take all those Oreos off, we still have more than enough to protect ourselves.
I mean, that's quaint. Trump's already said he wants a $1.5 trillion budget.
That's the amazing thing.
President Trump calling for a massive investment in America's defense, writing on Truth Social, quote, "For the good of our country, especially in these very troubled and dangerous times, our military budget for the year 2027 should not be $1 trillion, but rather $1.5 trillion.
What really amazes me about that is the callousness of that mentality. That, I mean, first, the country is saying, hey, we're broke. We ain't got no money. We're in debt. And then he's saying, well, I can figure out a way to squeeze out another $500 billion, and what I want to spend it on is the Department of War. And where does that, I mean, what kind of mentality is that? I mean, you've got people that are starving around the world. You've got people that are dying of preventable diseases. You got people in our country that can't afford child care. You got people in our country who can't afford health care. And the first thing he thinks about is, let's build more weapons and kill more people.
You seem to be up in arms, pun intended. So we will go side stage and we will update that diagram. I want us to kick off a fun little game show that we do here on Hasan Minhaj Doesn't Know. It's called Know Your Empire. You ready?
All right, I'll try to get them right.
Let's do it. How many military bases does the United States currently have in other countries?
About 800 military bases around the world. That's what the U.S. has. Do you know how many the country who has the next highest number has?
I have no idea.
5.
Well,
Clearly, those bases are not to defend the United States.
Well, what are they for?
They're to dominate the world. They're to control the world through military force.
How many countries does the United States currently have troops stationed in?
What is it? Like, it's over 100, isn't it?
Approximately 175. Now, Netflix is currently streaming in 190 countries. So that's almost all of Netflix's territories. How many countries is the United States in active armed conflict with?
Well, at least 10, I think.
The answer right now is 4 to 6. Now, I don't know if you're on Signal with Pete Hegseth or Kash Patel, who's the head of the FBI.
Yeah.
But it's 4 to 6 from what we've guessed. Iran, Venezuela, Syria, Somalia, maybe Iraq and Nigeria.
Yeah.
Like, I just found out about Nigeria a month ago. I was like, we have beef with Nigeria?
And Niger too, I think. I mean, what do you count when you say armed conflict? What is that? Including places that we bomb or drone assassinate, that kind of thing?
Well, to me, a bomb or drone is kind of the same. So whether you kill brown people with the PlayStation controller or there's a human doing it, I think it's the same.
Right.
But that's just me. Maybe I'm getting caught up in semantics.
I think my number of 10 is better than your number of 4 to 6, but whatever.
What do you think of the name change from the Department of Defense to now this thing called the Department of War?
Finally, something that Trump has said that's honest. It is not the Department of Defense. It is the Department of War.
Dude, I agree.
It's not set up to defend the U.S.
I'm actually pro this weird level of demented transparency.
Yeah.
Just say it for what it is. Pop the whitehead. When you have a zit, just say what it is. The U.S. recently started a new war with Iran. I don't know if you've heard. Now, Iran is part of the axis of evil. Now, as we know, evil is bad. Are Iran and Russia our enemies because they're more evil than our allies?
Any country that doesn't do what we want them to do, that's an enemy. That is the official policy. If you read the actual U.S. policy, the national security posture and strategy, all that crap, any country that develops economically or militarily must be considered to be an enemy, and we must do what we can to keep that country down. We need to sanction the country. We need to develop military plans to take over the country. I mean, the U.S. is currently developing plans to have a war with China, which is so freaking absurd.
Wait, so we're mad at them not because they directly did anything bad to us, but because they're more successful?
We don't like their form of government. We don't like the idea that they're economically successful. And we believe that it's a zero-sum game, that we need to control the entire world. And, China is getting to be powerful. And if we let them become too powerful, then we won't control the entire world. I mean, I think what China wants and what just about every country wants in the world, in the UN, is a multipolar world where the power does not reside just in one country, but where countries are treated as equals. That was the idea of the United Nations. And, the US has essentially thrown that out the window and said that we want a world where might makes right, and we're going to be the mightiest country there is, and we're going to call the shots. Okay, and we don't want to cooperate with other nations.
Well, so if the UN is calling for equality, what is the purpose of NATO?
The purpose of NATO was to protect the Western Europe from the Warsaw Pact. The Warsaw Pact was that group of Soviet countries. And, when the Soviet Union dissolved, there was no longer a need for the Warsaw Pact. It lost its purpose, and NATO should have been disbanded at that time.
But it still exists now, right?
It does.
And it's what, just a nuclear war tripwire? If Russia just fucks around and invades any of those NATO countries, it's basically a green light to blow up the world?
I guess. I think the way those countries in Europe look at it is that there used to be the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union had invaded them and taken them over, and they're concerned that Russia is going to try to do the same thing. But clearly it's not strong enough to do that. It's not capable of doing it. I don't particularly think they want to do that. I mean, they've got their hands full trying to run their own country.
I mean, this NATO and Russia thing, that issue got you in some particularly hot water, especially with liberals. Ben and Jerry's tweeted, "We call on President Biden to de-escalate tension and work for peace rather than prepare for war." I thought that was a pretty benign tweet.
Yeah.
I mean, we got a lot of these are a lot of Elmo approved pieces of language. De-escalate. Elmo tells us to de-escalate tension in fights. De-escalate tension. Great. Work for peace. That seems cool. Rather, instead, preparing for war. And liberals weren't happy with this tweet. They accused you of being an appeaser who loves Putin. How'd that make you feel?
I'm not pro-Putin. I'm not pro-Trump. I'm pro not solving your problems through war. And that how did it make me feel? It's okay. People can accuse me of whatever they want to accuse me of. I mean, it kind of goes with the territory. I mean, if you're going to take a stand on something, other people are going to be opposed to it.
So based on this NATO agreement, unless we're going to have a nuclear war with Russia, aren't we going to eventually get to the point where we have to have some sort of settled agreement?
I think so, yeah.
So that's what the tweet was saying. I think you should have reworded the tweet. Here's what you should have said. Look, a bunch of people are going to die, and that's not good. And then after a bunch of people die, there ends up being a peace agreement. So let's just skip over Act 1 and 2, and let's just get to the peace agreement.
I'm with you. I'm part of an organization called the Eisenhower Media Network, which is a bunch of former mid to high level military officers. And at the very beginning of the war in Ukraine, we took out a full-page ad in the New York Times and called for a ceasefire. So instead of having a ceasefire then, what we had was a war that's, what is it, now in its 4th year, that's killed and destroyed I don't know how many people and how many homes and villages, and eventually there's going to be some negotiated peace.
Let's talk about something else that gives me nightmares and prevents me from going to sleep at night. Nuclear weapons. You had another video that demonstrated the insanity of America's nuclear arsenal. Let's take a look.
Let me show you something. Here's one BB. That represents the nuclear bomb that we dropped on Hiroshima. And now what I'd like to do is demonstrate the size of our current nuclear arsenal. That was 50,000 BBs, enough to kill everybody on Earth. That's fucking crazy.
You know what's fucking crazy, Ben? I saw that video first thing in the morning before I had to drop my kids off at school. Fucked up my day, bro.
Well, you can use that information to change it and make your day better.
Okay. Well, your boy had to take 5 milligrams of Xanax just to get through the day. But in all seriousness, how many dollars does the U.S. military spend on nuclear weapons per minute?
Isn't it something like 125,000?
Yes, it's approximately $100,000.
Yeah, and that's just nuclear weapons.
What if instead of spending less on nuclear missiles, we spent more on defending ourselves from nuclear missiles? Allow me to show you a video from Pete Hegseth, big upping the Golden Dome Initiative.
We need that support in Congress, and they're there. We appreciate their support and work in getting that one big, beautiful bill to the president's desk for signature. Because with that signature came a massive $25 billion down payment on the Golden Dome for America, a revolutionary shield of space-based weapons and sensors, a vigilant constellation of next-generation sensors and satellites that will see every threat from every corner of the globe, paired with a network of space-based interceptors ready to neutralize any ballistic missile, any hypersonic weapon, any drone long before it threatens our homeland. That's how we establish complete and total orbital supremacy.
What's your response to this whole orbital supremacy thing? I mean, it's not white supremacy, but this sounds pretty badass.
It impressed me as a like a snake oil salesman, a medicine show.
What made you call bullshit on this? Because for me, it was the Comic Sans MS font at the bottom. That's the part that really got me. I mean, we didn't do the captioning there. That was the Department of Defense. Let me tell you something. DOD, if you're watching this, the rest of the world is laughing at us. There's plenty of font options. You can't go with that. But what did you think of that?
It's a physical and mathematical impossibility. It can't be done.
Why?
People talk about it as hitting a bullet with a bullet. The number of interceptors that it would require is unrealistic. It's a beautiful idea. It's a beautiful fantasy. But an invisible shield that will protect us from any and all threats, it just doesn't exist, and it never will exist because it's a physical impossibility. I mean, this is just a replay of Star Wars.
Not the George Lucas movie. You're talking about the pitch that Ronald Reagan made in the 1980s.
Right. He made the same pitch. I'm going to come up with an invisible shield that's going to protect us from any and all possible threats.
When you saw Ronald Reagan make the Star Wars pitch in the 80s, you weren't buying it?
No. I wasn't. I mean,
You didn't see the video?
if you
Austin, play Ben the video. You didn't see this?
U.S. spy satellites would watch the world below. The first response. Space-based kinetic energy weapons fire high-speed projectiles from hypervelocity guns. Earth-based nuclear-powered X-ray lasers fire their radioactive rays. Chemical lasers fire beams that burn through the shell of the onrushing missile. The surviving warheads enter the atmosphere above the United States, are attacked by laser-equipped planes. Earth-based lasers and ABM rockets eliminate the last warheads.
Kinetic energy weapons, chemical lasers, particle beams. You can't beat that.
it's make-believe and it's beautifully produced.
That's what orbital supremacy looks like. It looks like Tron. And I'm saying that as someone who stars in Tron Ares. I'm in 6 scenes and it's streaming now on Disney+. Take that, Putin. How do you make sense of the very real reality that no matter which political party is in power, defense spending year to year is always going up. It's not going down.
It's not defense spending, it's war spending. And yes, you're absolutely right. Both parties are equally to blame for, this, for what I think is destroying the soul and the spirit of America. America is not about taking care of people who need help. It's not about providing health care for people who need health care. It's not about providing food for people who need food. It's about killing huge numbers of people. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. I mean, the weapons that we have are designed to kill literally millions of people. And the mentality is that, well, and that's not enough. We need more. I mean, you can kind of understand it, that it's gotten simplified to the extent that what people have come to understand, what they've been told, is that if we spend more money on the military, we'll be safer. But it's not true. I mean, like Trump, he doesn't think about, well, what weapons do we need actually to be safer? He thinks about, I'd like to have $1 trillion military budget. And so he raises it to that level and then says, you guys figure out, how to spend it, what to buy with it. And then he says, well, $1 trillion, that's pretty good, but I want the next one to be $1.5 trillion. And I don't know what it's going to pay for, but you guys figure it out. But the reality is that it makes us all less safe. It makes us all less secure, because that money could be spent on things that would really make us more safe, more secure, things that would make us healthier, things that would allow us to have childcare for our kids, things that would allow us to buy houses, things that would allow us to, feed people that don't have enough to eat. I mean, you walk around, you say, oh, there's such a homelessness problem. It's horrible. Nothing could be done about it. I mean, you could end homelessness for $40 billion a year, which is chicken feed compared to $1 trillion Pentagon budget, soon to be, well, if he gets his way, $1.5 trillion.
Well, are Americans basically just not allowed to vote for decreasing the defense budget? Or as you call it, the war budget?
I think that's true. None of the major party candidates are talking about that, because they're deathly afraid if they talk about reducing the Pentagon budget, their political opponent is going to call them weak on defense. And that's that's going to make it hard for them to get elected. That's a charge that, the problem is that it's kind of a complex issue, and people are busy, trying to fix the hole in the roof and pick the kids up from daycare, and they don't have the ability to analyze this stuff. And so some guy says, well, we need to spend more money to be safer, or else that guy's going to come in and kill us. I mean, I guess.
3 years after Ben & Jerry's started, in 1981, Bernie Sanders became the mayor of Burlington, Vermont. You and Jerry scooped ice cream at the victory party. You were the original Bernie bros and have been huge supporters of Bernie Sanders throughout his entire career. What is it about Vermont that makes you care about your fellow American citizens?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think that, for one thing, Vermont is a very, very small state, and people know each other. I mean, it's not like people are in the way. It's like you like running into a person because it doesn't happen that often, and also there's kind of a farm and rural mentality, which is that you help your neighbor. That I mean, there aren't that many people around. You see someone in trouble, you help them out.
Do you think?
I mean, the other thing about Vermont is that the biggest things in Vermont are natural things: mountains, the lake, trees. Whereas you end up like in a city like here, and the biggest things are man-made. So you have more of a sense of yourself as a human being, not being the biggest thing, but being a small part of a natural world.
That's beautiful, man. Do you think that if the DNC had supported Bernie Sanders more in 2016, there was a possibility that he could have been president?
Absolutely. I have no doubt in my mind. I mean, what was amazing to me was I was receiving emails from the Bernie campaign, and I was receiving emails from the Trump campaign. And they were very similar.
You signed up for both listservs.
Yeah. They were very similar. I mean, we need to be saved from those corporations that are screwing us. We need to be saved from the ultra wealthy that are screwing us. I'm for you, the little guy. It's just that one of them was honest and the other one was just kind of pandering.
Do you think the Democratic Party learned its lesson in 2016, 2020,
no.
2024?
No. I've kind of given up on the Democratic Party. I think it's just calcified. I think mostly it's there are some notable exceptions, but I think to a large extent it's a lot of old white men that are just caring too much about their own position and getting reelected and not trying to change the country in a way that kind of revives the spirit of America. They're not looking to they're fiddling around the edges. They're not making any of the major changes in terms of how our economy is structured, how the whole federal budget is structured in order to prioritize the benefit of regular everyday people as opposed to prioritizing the benefit of corporations and the ultra wealthy and weapons manufacturers.
So listen, man, you've been fighting the good fight for 50 years. Are you hopeful or do you feel hopeless about the future?
You know, I guess if you're continuing to fight, you must feel hopeful. You know, I mean, what choice do you have? You can, you know, you're confronted with injustice. You can either ignore it, you can complain about it, or you can try to do something about it. And, you know, I understand that certainly me, myself, I'm not going to be able to solve the problem, but there's a heck of a lot of other people that are also working on it. You're working on it. And, you know, Pete Seeger told me this story, that he came, you know, he was walking along and he sees this playground off in the distance. Yeah. And he gets closer to it and he sees what's going on is that there's this giant seesaw and there's lots of people running around. And he gets closer and he sees that, you know, the seesaw is, you know, one side is down, there's this giant rock on it, and the other side is up, and there's all these people with teaspoons running around, taking a teaspoon of sand from this big pile of sand, climbing up this ladder, and dumping it in the bucket as a part of the seesaw that's up. And, you know, he's watching this going on, and he's noticing that there's holes in the bucket and that the sand is running out. And so he pulls one of these guys aside and he says, stop, you gotta see what's going on here. And, you know, he gets the guy to stop. The guy is sweating. He wipes his head and Pete says, don't you see? There's holes in the bucket and the sand is running out and you're never going to get that thing to flip. And the guy says, oh no, you don't understand. There's more of us with teaspoons all the time. And one of these days where there's going to be more coming in faster than it's running out. And all of a sudden, the whole thing is going to flip. And so, you know, I'm a guy with a teaspoon and there's more of us.
And you're racing up to fill up that bucket.
Yeah, doing what I can. I mean, what do you, otherwise you just accept it? Say, well, yeah, it's really fucked up. We're killing goes of people. We could be feeding, we could be helping, we could be making the world a much better place, but we're not. And, well, I'm just going to go back home and, I don't know, smoke some dope.
Ben, I appreciate you taking your spoon, filling it up with sand, climbing up that thing and filling up that goddamn bucket. And I hope we all help you fill up that bucket.
It'd be great to be climbing up that ladder with you, Hasan.
Hey, man. FreeBenandJerry's.com.
All right.
Free Ben.
Yo.
Ben Cohen, ladies and gentlemen.
All right. Hasan.
Let's do a demonstration. Let's use some Oreos and do a demonstration.
These gold ones on top, that's the $500 billion that Trump wants to add to the Department of War budget. These little orange ones, that's the $150 billion that he's already added because he likes big numbers like that. You could take 11 of these Oreos. That is enough to provide Medicaid insurance for everybody in the country. Homeless people, you could take care of them for 2 Oreos. Universal pre-K for another 2 Oreos. Lead poisoning is irreversible. We could get rid of it for 3 Oreos. People that are literally starving to death, you could take care of all of them for this many.
You have a shit ton of Oreos.
Here's how much China spends, Russia spends, Iran spends.
Ooh, they're just half of an Oreo?
Yeah, 10 billion.
Boy, what about Kim Jong-un?
Oh yeah, they got a half Oreo too. The dude in the White House, he could use his Oreos to actually help people.
This is great sponsored content for Oreo. #FuckRaytheon.
All